Hi everybody, as I was introduced, I'm going to talk about Agile security. This is my first time in Vienna, and so far I'm enjoying. I would like to thank you for staying for the last talk. I know sometimes it is a bit rough. I hope you had a day full of good sessions, and I hope you will enjoy my session too. This talk is from my personal experience, also in my current position and in previous positions. And before we go deep dive into the Agile security world, I would like to please present myself. So currently, I'm the security leader at CyberArk. A lot of people ask, what is a security leader, and what does he do? So basically, I'm in charge of the product security from head to toe. This means that, for example, security development lifecycle is under my responsibility. A lot of processes and evaluations from the requirements all the way through release and even beyond. Talking to customer, getting feedback, incident response. Basically, I'm in charge of making sure that our products go out secure. Also, as a result of that, I'm strategy and process driven. I mean, I need to plan a few steps ahead when it comes to the products because we're a security company. And also I need to implement the process as efficient as possible to make sure we are secure. And I don't like to do things halfway or only partial, and in that manner, when it comes to insecurity, I'm a pain in the ass. I don't like to get things done 50% or 60%. I like to do things done correctly. So this is also a reason why I came here to talk. I've been around for around 10 years in the security industry. In the past, I've been doing some consulting. In my military service, I was a security researcher, and I have done some penetration testing as well. So I'm familiar with all the different worlds, and still I feel that this talk is important enough to emphasize the security development lifecycle. A little bit about CyberArk. CyberArk was established in 1999. It's located in Israel and in the US mostly. We have partners across the globe. And we are currently in the field of privileged account security. We feel very strong about security. Actually, I was encouraged to come here and have this talk also by my company. But I don't want to talk too much about CyberArk since it is supposed to be vendor neutral. So if you want, please look us up. We're also hiring. So if you see something that fits you, be my guest. I like to start my lectures with a quote. This time, according to the theme, it's when you need to shoot, don't talk. About Agile security, there are a lot of best practices out there, a lot of guides of what to do and how to do, and sometimes it's not that easy to implement them. And I had a lot of questions regarding this process, which I didn't find answers for these questions by myself, so I had to implement these practices and see where it fails or where they fail. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in my position that tried some things and it didn't work. So I wanted to come and talk about the things I've done in order to help these people and to help you or whoever will be interested in this to adjust their program to be, let's say, compliant with Agile development. So I don't expect you to go back and sit in a bubble bath with a shotgun, but I do expect you maybe to take some things back to your program if you need them. So let's see what we're going to talk about a bit. First, I want to synchronize with you about what is Agile. How many people are practicing Agile on their daily basis here? No one. One. Okay. Which is good. So we'll do a short introduction. I'm not going to go deep inside, just going to talk about how it goes. Then we're going to talk about known frameworks for security development life cycles and their connection with Agile. Then I'm going to talk about how to collaborate with other R&D functions regarding security, because a part of this improvement into Agile security is to talk with as many people as possible inside your departments and empower them to help you with your security program. And the last thing will be talking about why am I actually talking about this topic, why security development lifecycle. I know it is not as sexy as hacking into smart homes or talking about Tor networks. However, I will try to show you why this is the cornerstone of security when it comes to breaches and incident response and other aspects of security. So let's talk about Agile first. What is Agile? Agile is a concept. Agile was around many years, but it was formalized in 2001. A group of, I think, around 17 software experts formed a group and tried to talk about why development processes are failing. And they had some four cornerstone concepts which are presented here. Basically, the things in red are valued, but the things in green are valued even more. They came to sense about individuals, the fact that the development was focusing on the process rather on the people pushing it and promoting it was causing the processes to fail. So they said the interaction and the individual in the center of the agile development was more important. Also, working software over comprehensive documentation. When you go to a customer, you want to show him what you got. You don't want to present papers. You want to present demo. You want to present a POC. So it's more important to release even things that are not completely ready so you can show them instead of just filling out papers and showing them to customers. Another example is responding to a change over following a plan. Even though it is hard for me as a security professional to go by this concept, it is okay to change demands during development and changing requirements rather than following a plan and saying, oh, sorry, we booked the plan until the next release, so we're not going to change anything. Because if you won't respond to a change, you will probably lose customers in today's world. So this is basically the introduction of Agile, and I will talk about two famous methodologies in Agile, just to make sure that we are all in the same line. The first one is called Scrum. Scrum is based on short cycles. Basically, the tasks executed in Scrum are originated from a product backlog. The product backlog is owned or managed by someone called product owner. The product owner gets feedbacks from customers as well as from the internal requirements from the company and try to create a container of features that he wants to be developed actually. These features come in the form of user stories. Instead of having technical requirements saying, I want this API or I want this integration, they think about what the user wants to do. I want to be able to upload this and that. So it's much more comprehensible to understand rather than just a bunch of technical requirements. Then the feature is passed into the sprint backlog. This is called grooming. And the sprint backlog is then managed by the development team, which pushes the task into the sprint. And by the end of every sprint, you're supposed to have something deliverable. This means that by the end of every sprint, you will be able to show something that works, like a feature that works. And this is the purpose of the short cycles, to do something that works. The cycles could be 1 to 4 weeks, even though in today's world, because they're online services and they're very popular, they could be even less than 1 week. Next methodology would be called Kanban. It's originated in Japan, actually in Toyota. And the thing is to break your task into small parts and to shift them between lanes or phases as they are ready, which is called just-in-time principle. This means that you don't take the entire project and move it from one phase to another phase. You just try to shift the task when they're ready. An important concept in the Kanban is working in progress. This means that every phase or every lane has a limit of the number, or could have a limit of number of tasks that are in it. And if it reaches the maximum, you cannot put more tasks in it until you move something out of this lane to the next lane. This is what creates the flow. So these two methodologies actually represent the flexibility and the dynamic nature of agile development. In the lecture, we will see some agile concept, and I'll start to talk about security now, as we just been through the agile introduction. And I will show how it integrates with security, or sometimes not integrating with security. One of the concepts is to deliver working software frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, preferring obviously a couple of weeks. If you are a business owner, this is great because it means you will ship your product out faster and it will be a lot more value and there will be more versions. If you are a developer, it means that the task will be smaller And in that case, everything will be simpler and much more clear. If you are a security professional, it means that you're about to freak out, because if you had this time to do your security tasks, now you have a lot less time and to do it again and again. So when you go into Agile, you are sometimes intimidated. And I don't think you should give up. So I, at first, tried to find a framework that would work with Agile development. So what kind of frameworks do we have today in security? We have vendor-based security development lifecycle programs like Microsoft or SAP or Cisco. They publish their SDLC online, and sometimes you can follow them. You have all sort of maturity models like the OWASP-SAM or the BSIMM. And you also have standards by NIST and other institutes that could help you. Unfortunately, those frameworks are very general and not very Agile driven. In that case, you might consider you have some compatibility issues with Agile, and you want to think about which of those frameworks really work with Agile. One of them, or maybe the only one I could find, was Microsoft. The SDL by Microsoft was revised in 2010. This was presented in Black Hat, actually. And they took the original security development lifecycle and classified it into 3 classes. Tasks that happen every sprint, tasks that happen every few sprints, which is also called bucket, and tasks that happen once in a project. This is the one time only. This was a very, I wouldn't say radical change, but a significant change that helped working in security and Agile together. However, if you examine some of the tasks or the classes, you will find some difficulties. For example, if we take the every sprint requirements, you have running analysis tools daily or per build, doing threat modeling for all the new features, filtering and escaping libraries using strong crypto, which is a bit general, but okay. So let's choose a task and see if we can do it every sprint, just for fun. Well, fun, just for work. Let's say we're going to do a threat model for all the new features. Awesome. However, as we said before, we welcome changing requirement even late in development, which is a principle I personally very like, or I like to hate. Because when you already did a review on a feature and you have the complete security analysis and everything is great, and then the product owner comes up and say, well, Daniel, we're 2 weeks before release and the customer wants to change something. Could you maybe do another review of the feature? And I'm like, but I did it already. And he said, yes, I know, but it needs to be redone. And I'm like, okay. So this means threat modeling is not only for new features, but also for change features, which makes things a bit tricky. Because threat modeling in general is supposed to be kind of a clear task, but it's not a very small one, because you need to choose your approach. What is the center of the approach? Is it the attack, the software, the assets? And they need to map everything. You need to map the assets or the actors, the entry points, understand how the data goes through those components and what kind of logic happens for each case and everything. So now try to think about this for every feature, new or change, every sprint, and you get something which is not very lightweight or not very easy to do every sprint. So how do we get out of this mess? As I said before, you need to coordinate with your product owner. This is a key principle to get things done right from the top. He's the emperor of the backlog, and this is funny because whenever I see this picture and I think about the product owners in my company, I think about this look they have, and they have the same look like this one, which is a bit unique. Even if you're now in sprints, in a certain sprint, the product owner probably knows what's going to happen in 3, 4, 5, or 6 sprints ahead. And you need to talk to him to make sure you're coordinated about what's going to happen. First, you can tell which of the features that are about to be developed are sensitive, which of them need your attention more than others. Rather than that, all the bucket tasks that I talked about before, like briefly, because you have the sprint, the one time in the bucket, some security personnel like to squeeze them into one sprint and do them all together in a dedicated sprint called a security sprint. So you can talk with the product owner and tell them, okay, I'm going to do all the tests in this sprint. Please allocate some resources from the team. And you can negotiate over this, and it will be much easier. And also, you can talk with the product owner and tell them, okay, for this product, I feel that the main threats are A, B, C, and you can agree or disagree, but eventually you will have to synchronize and understand what is the cutoff for the most important threats, because it will save you time, and the product owner will be happy because he knows that whatever you find is relevant. So, this is by the way, every time you see a star, after this lecture, you can go to these slides. These are the tips, so it will save you some time searching. Another principle. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. No more emails. No more emails. I don't like big threads and talking emails, links, Skype, whatever. It's sometimes a bit rough. And I do like to just jump to the room next door and meet the people and talk to them. However, for example, in Scrum, there are also meetings that are called Scrum Dailies, which means every day you meet and talk about what the team does. And you have the sprint's summary and the sprint planning and retrospective. So there are also a lot of meetings that are not security related necessarily, but you do want to be there just to make sure that nothing goes unnoticed. So you sometimes feel like this. There are meetings. Just everywhere there are meetings. And nobody uses email anymore, and you get like all your Outlook is just stuffed with meetings. So let's do a short exercise. Let's say that you're security professionals, which you are, and in your company, the sprint is 2 weeks. You're overlooking 4 teams when it comes to security, and each team has a daily of 15 minutes. A meeting for 15 minutes to synchronize on what they do. The calculation adds up for about 10% of your time. It doesn't sound much, but think that you waste 10% of your time just to understand what's going on, and it doesn't have to be specifically about security. For me, this is a lot of time. I can use it to do something else. So the way we solve this is to appoint security champions. It means that you go into the teams and you talk to someone, and you know these guys that could help you. These guys usually are very curious or very security friendly, as I like to say, because they stay after lectures you give, they ask questions, they care, they want to know what a vulnerability is, they read something on the internet and they come up to you and ask, and they could be really strong resource. Not just because they can save you the time, as we talked before, but also because they probably know the product better than you. If you're in charge on several products, they know like the hidden corners which you may not reach by yourself. So this is a very strong tool as far as I'm concerned. And also, if they show potential, you can always just convince them to join the dark side, which is your team, the security team. So there's also a growth potential for your team, in a way. Okay, let's talk about the teams themselves. We talk about the security champion in a team, let's talk about the teams. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. The modern teams are not as they used to be. Today, you have a lot of functions inside the team and not in cross-organizational structure. They're expected to know more. They're expected to touch code by other teams and other products in order to promote features. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and they need some help. Anyways, this is how it's happening now. And the structure of the team is very versatile because you have the team leader, you have developers and architects, QA, system analysts. They have different personalities. They are sometimes unexpected, and you don't know what to expect when they try to help you. They could be also very strong in a specific skill, like presented here, but not in security. You don't really know what is the security skill which is expected. This results in the fact that everybody expects you, or the security guy that helps the team, to be extremely strong and do all the tasks and do all the security things that, thank you, and do all the security things that concern the team. How we can solve this, or how we can ease the pain of the team when it comes to security? Customized training. I've seen a lot of companies use one session fits all kind of thing, where you just go over the OWASP top 10 or basics of network security, And this does not work with Agile. This just does not work, and you need to think more about who needs what. In a way, you can create a task per position, and you can use example from inside the product, which is way clearer rather than a general example you brought from a website. And you also need to track and certify the people. It's important that they will go through tests, because if they don't, then they just go into your session, and then they go out, and then they forget everything. So if you make them go through tests, it's much more effective. And also recertifying them after some time to make sure they brush up on what you taught them. This gives you some flexibility in carrying out the security tasks that are in the team and also sometimes out of the team, as they can lift up cross-organizational effort in security. This is an example that we had from Cyborg, which we built training for cross-organizational functions. We thought that first, everybody is optional to all the sessions. There's no one who will not be able to join a session, and we feel that some sessions are mandatory for some positions, so we try to build it up. People in management positions, we felt that we don't want to make them to take the time for testing, so we just want to be present at the sessions rather than learning for the positions, for the tests, sorry. So some of them we just don't certify, and that's okay with us. But this is, for me, is a great track because it shows exactly who needs to do what and how they can help with the security tasks. Okay, everybody took photos, good. Now, the last thing I would like to talk about is actually the reason why I'm talking about security development lifecycle. As I said before, this is not something very attractive in today's security scope or security landscape. However, in most breaches, there are several links of the chain where it comes to how to exploit a breach. And I feel that the development part is the first link. The SDLC will show how strong your software is. And then there's the phase of release of how secure you deploy your software, your customer deploy your software. And also when the software is already deployed, then obviously there are people out there that would like to research and to exploit and to pivot once they infiltrate your customer's environment. So I will be going over a few famous lines I've heard when it comes to why not having secure development lifecycle intact. This will be also based on external information sources, which I will share with you, of course. The first one is, we will fix it post-release. Something was discovered 2 days before the release, and they said, no, we will fix it after it will be released. Jeremiah Grossman, I hope everybody knows who Jeremiah Grossman is. He's a big founder of application security. He's also the founder and CEO of Whitehead Security. He lectured 2 months ago in Israel. And he showed a survey that Whitehead had with, I think, US-based customers. And they showed that the average time to fix in days was very versatile, but there was nothing less than 73 days in average to fix. It's 2.5 months, and this is the fastest one. The slowest ones were more than half a year. So even if you know you want to fix something, you know there will be some months of exposure for your customer. And for me, this is something which is unacceptable, or at least not for critical, very high or high vulnerabilities. So I feel that this excuse or this reasoning is not very strong, especially not when you have data like this. The other things that I sometimes like to hear, once I convince people that post-release is not a good idea, post-release fixes, is, okay, even if it's out and our software causes a breach, the customer will surely detect it. Well, CyberArk had a survey by itself, and we asked more than 600 C-level managers, CEOs, CIOs, and CSOs, about breach data and how they feel about different incidents. So one of the questions we asked them is how long it will take you to discover that you've been breached. 55% felt safe to say that it will take them days or less to detect that there is a breach. How many here feel that this is accurate? That it takes days to detect a breach? Exactly. And even if I assume that this is accurate, let's say that we have other 45% that feel it will take weeks, and especially the 30% they don't know. They just don't know how much time it will take them, which obviously is a bit terrifying. So this line is also not very relevant as far as I'm concerned. The next one from the same survey says, I'm sure that there are other factors to a breach rather than bad practices of development and deployment. Wrong. Those CEOs and managers felt that almost 50% of their reasons, leading factors, is poor employee security habits, which means either you deploy the software insecurely or that you develop things without proper SDLC. So this is also not very true. Obviously, there is a 30% of technical sophistication, but if someone goes for that direction, you can go back and say, hey, but if they're technical, if they're very sophisticated, how are you going to be sure you're going to detect them in days or less? So it's kind of a game here. This is why I also feel confident to say that this is also not very good practice to think that it's someone else's fault. The two last things I would like to discuss would be about an experiment that our labs, CyberArk labs, had. We have an analysis tool that we can run on a network. And that network could say the connection between between Windows-based hosts. So we did some experiments, and we saw, for example, that some networks are just not very secure, unfortunately. How would you define a high-risk host? Anyone have an idea what is a high-risk host when it comes to network security? Well, we define it as a host that has access to other Windows-based hosts. Who would like to guess what is the threshold of the high risk? Is it access to 50% of the other machines? Is it 60%? Guesses? No? Okay, you're tired. I know it's the last lecture of the day.
10%.
10%? No. Wow, no. We define it as 80%, meaning that a host which is in high risk has access to 80% of the other Windows-based hosts. So if I go, for example, for the 51 until 60% column, this column means that 11 networks that were sampled had over half of the computers with access to 80% of the network or more. And the right column means that 90 to 100%, like 3 networks had over 90% of their hosts, all their hosts, with access to over 80% of the other hosts. So it was very connected network and very, in a way, insecure. So saying that it doesn't matter, as a lot of companies secure their networks anyways, it also, when you see this kind of data, it's irrelevant, because if you infiltrate one computer and you have access to 80% of the network, it's just dangerous. And also, in this case, size does not matter. Like, you can think that big companies or big networks, they invest more in preventing this kind of access, or let's say risk. But you can really see that it doesn't matter how many computers there are in the network, because the percentage of the high-risk host is just fluctuating between the sizes, so it's really not based on size. So for conclusion, even if you think that SDLC is okay to just run by and not to invest in, and everything else will be treated either by the release or by the anti-abuse processes, this is incorrect. And I advise you or anyone who thinks that way to pay more attention to the security development lifecycle, especially when it comes to Agile, which is harder to enforce than traditional. So I would like just to go back over the thing we covered. Agile is a modern methodology for software development. It is very commonly used today. In theory, security should be integrated very easily. However, in practice, it's not, as you saw. I do advise you to go over the presentation if you practice Agile development and go for the stars for the tips. And there's a long chain of product security. SDLC is first in line, and I really wish you to not be in a place where you need to handle one of the last links in that chain for incident. Any questions? Or, sorry, I took your job.
We have a few minutes left before closing ceremony, so.
A question about governance. In France those days, we are talking since a few months about security in the projects.
Okay.
From the beginning to the end. For everything, you make a project, you make a small risk analysis in order to not have problems after, in order to pay a lot to fix some security bugs at the end. But how can you implement this in this model in Scrum and Agile process?
Just to make sure I understood the question.
That's a question about governance and about Scrum process daily on the run mode.
Okay.
The running mode.
Well, I will answer it in two ways. The first one is security projects is not specific for Agile. I mean, for me, it's also in the traditional development methods. So those activities already should be in place. But when you switch to Agile, for example, Scrum, then you do need to make some modification. For example, having the sprint summary meeting has to have some security review of the activities that were done in that sprint. This is a part of the governance we have. We also use Kanban for the tasks, so every task will get some sort of security grade in order to know how much attention we need to focus. Is it only like something irrelevant as a graphic change in our website, or does it something that changes the authentication mechanism? So we also know to balance out, and this reflects in the cards we put on the board in the Kanban. And this also helps us to track things. As for Scrum specifically, we mostly use the security champions, as we said, and also we have a continuous review of the product roadmap to make sure nothing is unnoticed in that matter. Does this answer your question? Okay, great.
Yes, there's time for one more.
So, question I have from your experience with applying this program. How do you measure effectiveness?
How much effectiveness?
How do you measure effectiveness?
Okay, well, basically this lecture could have been 45 minutes, and one of the measurements, one of the aspects was also measuring. So since we use Kanban boards, we know that first for the security team missions, which are not the development reviews, we measure how much time does it take from planning to in process to done. So we have some sort of cycle time of the average time that it takes us to carry out a mission. We also measure the average time to fix in CyberArk, so we know if something is out of the agreed timetables for fix according to the severity of the bug. This is the second one. And the third one is every time a task in the development team goes to done status, we make sure we review all the activities of that task to make sure that even if we are far from release and we have like 5 more sprints until the release, we have time to cover up if something was not done. So these are the 3 key elements of measuring.
Right. So one thing is like on the table you have like...
The training?
Yeah, on the training table. Like PM was optional.
Yes.
Like, do you have any problem with this?
I wish I could say I have strong control of product management. However, they are very experienced, and sometimes they could be very stubborn. Luckily, in my company, they're very nice and very cooperating. But I wouldn't want you to go and chase the product managers and say, you need to be in my security session. You could do that, only if you have the backup of your managers, because it can lead to unpleasant situations. I don't know if the product manager is part of your department or outside, so if you do it, and I think it should be done, do it wisely. This is why I said it optional, not to see people running around and chasing PMs around. Welcome.
One last question? Nobody? Excellent. Well, Glenn, thank you.
Thank you very much.